We're gaining fury and completing combos. That's right, it's Anastyr from Mythic Games. In this cooperative adventure, 1 to 4 players take on the role of heroes of the legendary group, the Companions of the Spear. Throughout a series of games, each known as an adventure, players will battle powerful monsters, tame epic mounts, and prepare themselves to face the villainous dragon queen, Anastyr. Setup begins with adventure selection. Each game can be played in a standalone adventure or linked together in a campaign, allowing players to carry over all their epic items and abilities from previous games. Today we're setting up for the first adventure, known as First Blood, which begins with the quest card to set the scene and explain the objectives. We'll continue completing those objectives and following the quests until we reach the adventure completed text, at which point, well, we would have won that game. However, if the event deck runs out of cards, or if we run out of heroes to replace those fallen in battle, the game ends in a loss. Adventure setup begins with the game tiles. Set them in the center of the table as listed in the scenario. The left is known as the west tile, while the right is known as the east. Place the terrain standees and any tokens indicated in the adventure setup on the game tiles. Then create a supply for the quest cards, ordered numerically, objective side up. The loot cards shuffled into a face-down deck. The event cards also shuffled into a face-down deck. Creature cards for the adventure, along with their miniatures. Extra heroes and the knocked out hero tile. Players will decide which extra hero will be on the sidelines for the start of the game, setting that mini on the card, ready to join once a player's hero is knocked out. And a general supply of all the other tokens. On the right side of the game tiles, create an area for enemies. Place the enemy cards for this scenario face up and separated by type and tier, along with their miniatures and a supply of bleeding severe injury cards. Each player selects a hero and takes the matching dashboard. 2 miniatures, you got one on foot and the other mounted. Technique cards, shuffled together and placed in a face-down deck to the left of the dashboard. Starting Fury card, placed face down. Additionally, each player takes a reroll token, ready side up. A hit point marker placed on the highest possible space of the hit point bar. A Fury marker placed on the 0 space of the Fury bar. Next, set up the activation queue tile, activation side up. Then take each player's hero activation card, the region activation card, and the enemy activation cards. Shuffle them face down and create the activation queue by dealing the cards face up to the right of the tile. Set the spawn tile at the end to complete the queue, then shuffle the spawn deck and create a face-down deck to the right of the spawn tile. Place the activation token on the activation queue tile. Finally, take the enemy and creature miniatures shown in the adventure setup and place them on the game board. Each player places their hero on foot miniature on one of the spaces indicated in the setup. And now we are ready to play. Gameplay occurs in rounds, each divided into 5 phases: hero preparation phase, initiative phase, activation phase, enemy spawn phase, end of round phase. First up, in the hero preparation phase, players draw technique cards into their hand up to the limit of 3. Before drawing, they are allowed to discard any or all technique cards already in their hand, but must always keep severe injury cards. If a player's deck is ever empty, they shuffle their discard into a new draw deck. Next, in the initiative phase, players check for chaos. This occurs if the activation queue tile is chaos side up. If so, players update the activation queue by flipping the tile back to its activation side, then collecting all the activation cards, shuffling them face down, and dealing them into a row to the left of the tile. Additionally, various game effects can endow a hero with the leader attribute. They take the leader token until it's used or an ally becomes the new leader. When used, the leader token is discarded back to the supply. One of these uses is Enemy Disruption Sequence, which can be used during the initiative phase. The leader may spin their token to swap their activation card with any other activation card in the queue. Next, in the activation phase, the activation token is moved down the activation row one card at a time. As it lands on a card, that card's combatants, heroes or enemies, are activated. When the token reaches the region card, that region's effects are applied. This process continues until all activation cards have been activated. Once it reaches the spawn tile, this phase is over. Note that some game effects may disable an activation card, which turns it 90 degrees. When the activation token reaches one of these cards, it's oriented back to its normal status but not activated. Let's first look at a hero dashboard, which has hero name and class, of which there are 4 types. We've got warrior, tank, shaman, and rogue. Hit point bar and fury bar. A creature slot for tamed creatures, a special ability unique to each hero, stats including combat, defense, art, and movement, and size, which is the amount of space taken by that hero on any one space of the game board. Spaces have a capacity of 6, and most combatants have a size of 1. Combos, which require a sequence of technique cards to be used in order to activate, and slots for the technique cards. Technique cards have a name and gem type, a reinforcement bonus which can be used in lieu of the card's regular activation, a reaction icon which can be triggered when certain conditions are met, and a card effect. Now let's take a look at some of the activations. Hero activation. Depending on the number of players in the game, each hero will have a number of basic actions available to them on their turn. In a solo game, the player controls 2 heroes, each of which has 3 basic actions. For 2 players, the active hero has 3 basic actions. For 3 or 4 players, 2 basic actions. The same actions cannot be used twice in one activation. Many hero actions involve movement and attacks. So let's look at how those are resolved, shall we? When a hero moves, they may transfer their miniature a number of spaces equal to their move value. One of those moves may be diagonal, the rest must be orthogonal, though it doesn't matter which order those come in. Note that spaces have a max capacity of 6, as we mentioned, in terms of size, for all miniatures within that space. No miniatures can enter a space if it's full. When a hero attacks, they use either their combat stat for a physical attack or their art stat for an art attack. The target must be in the same space unless that hero has a range trait, and the target is in line of sight and within that range. When attacking, the hero rolls adventure dice equal to their appropriate stat, counting the number of hits in the roll. Note that the grapple icon is not a hit. The sum of hits is known as the attack power. The hero then assigns hits amongst any enemies in the targeted space. If an allocation of hits equals an enemy's defense value, in the case of a physical attack, or art value for art attacks, the enemy loses 1 hit point. Many enemies only have 1 hit point, especially in the early adventures, so most successful hits result in the enemy being eliminated and removed from the board. Basic actions include maneuver, which combines a movement and a physical attack. The movement part is optional. For instance, if the hero wants to hit an enemy in their space. Prepare combo, which allows the hero to assign one of their technique cards from their hand to the leftmost available slot on the combo track. The hero gains a fury point per icon on that card. Perform technique, where a hero uses their technique card for the listed effect, gaining any fury points listed on the card. They may then optionally slot it or discard it. Focus, which allows a player to refresh their reroll token to its ready side or perform a fury roll. The hero rolls the fury die and gains fury equal to the result. Heal allows the hero to roll adventure dice equal to the marks on their current health value. In the case of Brid here, when she has 5 health, she rolls 2 dice to heal. She then gains hit points equal to the result. Instead of rolling, the hero may also use the heal activation to discard a severe injury card from their hand. Interact allows the hero to access a quest component or other game effect. The player discards a technique card with the matching gem icon, gaining any fury listed. Additionally, some other actions like tame creature or throw enemy allows the hero to interact with other combatants in new ways. Check out Chapter 7 of the rulebook for details. But for tame creature, I just gotta show you. You can mount them with magnets. It's super sweet. I mean, like, look at that. That's just... Heroes may also perform free actions provided certain conditions are met. These actions do not count against their action limit on an activation. Trigger combo, which allows a hero who has all their cards listed for a sequence slotted in order to trigger that combo as a free action. After the effect resolves, the hero discards their slotted cards, gaining any fury on those cards. Unleash Fury, which can occur once a Fury marker is on the very top of the Fury bar. Flip the Fury card as a reminder, and the hero may now use that effect as a free action anytime in the future. And Use Mount or Use Loot, which allows them to apply the effects of the relevant card. Enemy activation occurs when the activation token hits an enemy card. Enemies first move, then attack. Notably, enemies ignore most terrain effects except impassable terrain, unlike heroes. Additionally, they can move diagonally anytime with no limits. Enemies are crazy! See Chapter 7 of the rules for exact movement and finding the targeted hero. Once targeted, the hero rolls defense against the attack of all enemies targeting it. When a region activation occurs, draw the top card of the event deck and apply its effects. Hourglass icons on the top right indicate that this effect will persist until the next event card is drawn and replaces it. Additionally, any wild creatures are activated in this step, moving their move value in the direction noted on the event card. One other note, as heroes progress toward their objectives, they will be heading east. Once no more combatants remain on the west tile, a scroll occurs. The west tile is removed along with any components, and the east moved left to take its spot. Place a new adventure tile as listed on the adventure scrolling list in the eastern spot. Next, in the enemy spawn phase, new enemies are placed on the board based on the spawn card drawn from the top of the deck, each of which has a game tile for deployment, spawn space based on the enemy type and level, effect, danger level, and reference number. The enemies are then placed on the game board based on their game tile, either west or east, beginning in the direction of the deployment symbols, in this case, east. If no enemy cards remain in play for a spawning enemy, do not spawn them. Same applies for specialist enemies, but in that case, deploy a minion of the same level instead. Also, if there's no room in the space, there's no spawn. Finally, in the end of round phase, if the event deck is empty, the heroes have taken too long in their quest and the adventure ends in failure. Otherwise, the activation token is returned to the queue tile and a new round begins. And that's the basics of Anastyr. For additional rules on knocked out characters, grappling enemies, and campaign advancement, see the more extensive rulebook for details. I'm Becca Scott, and you can watch me teach this game and many other awesome games right here on Geek and Sundry. We'll see you around.